And now I have this amazing testimony, this incredible story of his power and his goodness and his provision to me every step of the way, and in the culmination of the birth itself. It's just this powerful thing I will hold on to, like this Ebenezer stone in my life where I can call back and remember the goodness and the faithfulness of God to me in my life.
Welcome back to the Pain-Free Birth podcast, ladies. Today I am with the beautiful Audrey Stinson, who is here to share with us her VBAC, actually HBAC home birth stories. And the fourth one was pain-free. And I am so excited, you guys. This girl is a gem. Audrey is a Jesus-loving former RN and homeschooling mama of 4. She had 2 C-sections followed by 2 redemptive home births. And she now loves to help other women prepare for birth with confidence and peace rooted in the Lord. She has her childbirth education certification, and she also does podcasting. And she just loves sharing about God's design for birth with moms and encouraging women in their design for labor and motherhood. And so I am stoked to have her on the show. Welcome, Audrey.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen. It is an honor and a blessing to be here and actually get to talk to you face to face. I feel like I have followed you for so long now that I know you, I know your voice, but getting to actually speak with you is so fun and such a gift. Thanks for having me on.
Oh my gosh, the feeling is mutual. I feel like we could talk all day. I love it when that happens because I'm like, oh my gosh, we're on the same page. Like we could gab all day long. And we're pulling back a little bit. We actually shared her birth a couple years ago, and I went back to it because it was so beautiful and highlighted just some incredible things that I want you guys to hear. And we've been talking about VBACs, we've been talking about doulas, we've been talking about pain-free births after women have had multiple births and how God can shift it in a moment, how much it can be radically different. And so we're going to hit on all of that today. If you are a woman preparing for VBAC, listen up. If you're a woman who's had multiple births, wondering, can birth really be better? Can birth really be pain-free? This is the show for you. And if you're considering hiring a doula or becoming a doula, again, this is the show for you. So Audrey, after 2 C-sections, what made you decide to pivot to have a completely different birth experience, hire a doula, and go the natural home birth route?
Yeah, it's a wild change, isn't it? It's quite a jump. So with my first 2 births, my first one, I really just, I quote unquote, went with the flow. Like I did no preparation. I did no further education for myself outside of what I'd already gotten through my 1 rotation in L&D during nursing school, which was, by the way, not enough. And so with that birth, I just kind of allowed everything to happen. I showed up, I got the meds. I got the little meds that they give you before they give you the actual epidural, because I was hitting that wall real fast, having done 0 preparation mentally for labor and for contractions, that I was ready to tap out almost as soon as I got there. So got the epidural, and then shortly after my physician came in to check on me, saw that everything was looking good. She's like, yeah, everything looks great. Let's go ahead and break your waters to continue moving things along. And so again, as I've already said, Karen, I did 0 education on my own. And so I said, okay, sure, you're the doctor. You tell me what to do.
And they didn't give you the
whatever.
risks of this intervention,
No,
of course.
Of course not. Of course not, right? And I think maybe partially because they knew, because I had developed a decent relationship with this physician. She knew my history in nursing. I think maybe there was this false understanding in her mind, like, oh, she's a nurse, like she knows things, even though my specialty was not in L&D. And so she just kind of was like, oh, it's no big deal. We'll just go ahead and break it and just keep things moving along. Well, she did. And within minutes, my daughter's heart rate went way down. There was massive decelerations in her heart rate. And to the point that several nurses came in with the epidural on board and had me kind of get on all 4s, kind of helped me up, moved me around to see if baby could get into a better position. And it just wasn't happening. So very quickly after that, my physician was called back into the room, and they tried to re-infuse my uterine cavity with normal saline to give baby the ballotment that had been lost when they broke my waters again.
Wow, I've never heard of that.
I know. I don't feel like that's a common one, but I think pretty quickly she realized, oh
now
man,
baby's in salt water. Like, is that good for baby?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't. There's not really many other people that I've heard that it happened to. But I think
But
she
it must
realized,
be like like, okay, we need to do this to avoid
right?
something bad
Yes.
happening.
Well, I think she recognized based on how my baby was responding to the loss of the fluid that was holding her in. I think she realized, oh no, the baby was not in an optimal position before we took that water away from her. And
Yeah.
now she's not in a position that is conducive to her doing well. And so trying to give her that ability to move better, having the water back in, that's what she was trying to do, but it just did not work out. And so from there, maybe within 15 minutes, they were saying, okay, we're rolling you back for a C-section right away. And that's what happened. And then I had to go under general anesthesia actually, because I had a hot spot with my epidural. And so I took a little nap and I woke up as a mom. It was a wild
Yeah,
transition
so you were
to go
unconscious.
from,
That's what that means.
yes,
You were unconscious,
exactly.
put under for the birth of your first baby. Wow.
Correct. I woke
Not
up
the way you wanted to experience it, I'm sure.
no, but again, I didn't honestly in my mind have any expectation of what I did want to experience. I just thought this was just what you did, and what you got is what you got as far as your
Yeah.
birth goes. And so waking up to a crying baby being put on my breast to breastfeed for the first time ever, it was a wild transition into motherhood. So fast forward 21 months from then, I'm going to the hospital again to give birth to my second baby. I did not leave my previous provider because I had this bond with her, right? She saved my baby. She was there in the most traumatic moment to that date of my life at that time, and she saved the day. She was the hero.
You were trauma
And so
bonded.
I was trauma bonded. Of course, I didn't see this that way, but that's exactly kind of what it was. And
Yeah.
so when we found out
You
we were
said it
pregnant,
first, not me.
I know, but you just called it what it was. I was over here trying to be delicate, and you said, no, this is what it is. So you got it.
I know I can say that because I know we're on the same page now. But when I'm talking to women
Absolutely.
and hearing these first
Yes.
births, I
Yes.
usually just keep my mouth shut. But you
Oh,
hear
I
these
know.
stories too, and you go,
I do.
yeah,
I
you're trauma
do.
bonded.
I
She
do.
saved
And,
your
and I can
life.
say that now. And I can say that now without any like shame or guilt or feeling bad or
Yeah.
defensive about it, because I didn't know what I didn't know, Karen.
Yeah.
And
And
most
you
first time
came from
moms
that
don't.
background. You are
I know.
medical minded,
Mhm.
so this is
Yep.
normal. This is what happens every day.
This is what I saw in the hospital during my L&D rotation. And in fact,
Yeah.
I actually didn't see a single vaginal delivery while I was on that unit during my nursing education. I only saw C-sections. And that's a wild thing to consider even now that I think about
Only
it too.
C-sections, not
I
just
only saw C-sections. Yeah.
physiological natural birth, but you didn't even see a vaginal birth.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Ladies,
I
did
saw.
you hear that?
Mhm.
Did you hear that? Oh my gosh. I like when I tell women, like your doctor, your nurses have likely never seen a physiological birth before. They like scratch their head. I'm like, no, it's true. It doesn't happen. You didn't even
Yeah.
see not just a natural unmedicated birth, a vaginal birth.
No,
Holy moly. Like
I know.
your medical care providers are not experienced in physiological birth.
No,
Period.
they. Yeah,
I
and
just
and
wanted
it's
to make sure
and
they
it's
caught that
so
because holy
sad.
cow.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing to highlight and make sure that your
It is.
listeners understand, because there is a huge misconception on that front. And you know, so all that to be said, I had this relationship with this provider that I thought was strong and based in like this mutual sense of like we're simpatico because we've gone through this hard thing together and we came out on the other side and everybody's okay. And so going from I know and going from that
More trauma
into
bonding.
aka trauma bonding. But going from that and then being pregnant with my second, there was just no thought in my mind other than, well, I'll just go back to her. That's just
Yeah.
what you do. There was a very small thought in the back of my mind. Well, maybe I kind of want to try for a VBAC, but it wasn't a strong one. It was more just like a maybe we'll see again. It was completely
We'll
relinquishing
go with the
to
flow. Yeah.
yes, we're gonna see what the doctor says is safe for me. Like I didn't take up the responsibility and the mantle of saying, okay, what is appropriate and safe for me? Because I can do my own research. I can look into these numbers and these statistics, and then based on the set of risks that are present in both situations, whether it is a choosing to have a VBAC or choosing to have a repeat C-section, there are sets of risks in both. I could have looked it up. I could have studied it. I could have gotten the numbers and figured out which set of risks am I most okay with accepting and then gone from there. But instead, I just turned it over to her and I said, okay, well, what do you think? And of course, her recommendation was a repeat C section. And
Yeah.
so, even though I told her I kind of want to try for a vaginal delivery, her answer always was, well, we'll just see. We'll just see. And so, as my delivery date got closer, and they did the repeat sono at like 36 weeks to see, is the baby getting, I'm doing air quotes, too big. They saw in that little sono, okay, baby's tracking like it's going to be a bigger baby than your first. And I was told from this provider, because you couldn't birth your first baby vaginally, it's
Oh,
likely that second babies are bigger than first babies. And so you're probably not going to be able to have this one. And we don't want the same situation to happen to you with the emergency C-section again, do we? And of course I'm sitting there on the table
I'm
thinking,
banging
well, of
my head
course
against
not.
the wall. You
I
guys, in
I
case you
know,
can't
because
see.
we know the end of the story, Karen. We know the end of the story. We know all the ins and outs of these situations. But
Oh, and it
here
had,
I
like,
am. Oh
your
God,
first birth had nothing to do with your baby being too big. It was because they broke
no,
your water.
exactly, exactly. But again, like I think if I could say anything to anybody listening right now, it's that if something doesn't sit right with you, or you have even the slightest bit of questions with how your previous births have gone, do the due diligence that you can and learn about it. Ask questions, whether it's from that provider or somebody else that you trust in the birth world, the birth community, that can look at your situation, maybe even look at your chart and your notes if you can access them, and say, okay, what about this? What about that? And you can kind of be your own little detective. And if this is something that is burning in your heart, like if you think about your past birth stories and you're just not quite pleased with how they went, maybe even deeper than that, you have some trauma from that, and that's really unsettling to you, and it's caused some roadblocks in you wanting to have other babies. Press into that. That's not there for nothing. That's not there for you to just kind of toss to the side and let somebody else handle it. God's giving you that intuition to press into, and if he's giving that intuition to you to press into, he's likewise going to give you the discernment and the wisdom and the guidance to come to the proper conclusion that he wants you to see from analyzing and looking into your past birth stories. So I'm just going to add that little tangent in right there
So
because,
well said. Mic drop.
I mean,
And I,
because, yeah,
it's so good. And it's so true. 100% agree. And like, as you were telling your story, I was just getting goosebumps because I so empathize with women who are in your situation, and you just perfectly like laid out the journey of that mindset shift and where you truly were at, and where many women, probably most women in the America and other industrialized nations that have similar healthcare are at, is go to the doctor, outsource your power, and you're slowly making this shift. You're waking up to taking radical responsibility for your birth after being dissatisfied. So
yeah.
tell us, like, what actually like made that shift for you? What was like the last straw that had you go, okay, I am doing this differently for my third?
Yeah. Okay. Well, all that to be said, I can say those things now because the Lord has brought me through the journey, right?
Yeah, I
But
can see that.
yes, exactly. But when I was preparing to, have my scheduled C-section with my second child, I still was very much in the like, well, okay, I guess my body can't have babies vaginally. I guess this is just my lot from here on out. Like I don't get to have vaginal deliveries. That's just not what the Lord has in store for me because my body failed me. And so from that delivery, my second born's delivery, my second C-section, I came out of that recovery just hating it. I hated postpartum. I hated the weakness and the limited capacity of my own body to heal. I'm chasing a 21-month-old at this point too. And so I did not give myself time to heal. That really was the biggest thing that just laid me out. Was I was trying to get back to normal life too quickly. Didn't follow any instructions of like how to best prepare for letting everything heal. And I remember telling my husband during that postpartum recovery, if I have to have more C-sections, I think we're done having kids. And that was a great sadness to me because I come from a family where I'm the only child. So I'm an only child, and it was very much on my heart to have more kids, have a big family. And so with how hard that second C-section healing time was, I just didn't feel like I could do it again. And so that set me on this path like a year and some months afterwards, where I was really intentional about, okay, if or when I get pregnant again, I have to have a VBAC. I say have to. Obviously, my hands were open to the fact that the Lord knows best. And if he knew I wasn't going to be able to do that, that was his will and I was going to be able to receive it. But from that time that I had my second baby, I began praying that the Lord would either change my heart to future pregnancies, or that he would make a way for me to have a VBAC, that would be possible for me, and that I wouldn't have to have another C-section with any future children. So it did take a year and some months though before I got to this place of like, okay, I think I might be ready to look into this again, of getting pregnant again, because I was starting to take care of my health more. I was being a lot more intentional with what I was putting into my body. And I had started to look at VBAC statistics. I had started to look at what disqualifies a woman from a VBAC versus what makes them a good candidate for it. And I had started being more critical of what I had experienced with my first two births. Like, was there something in there that would put me in this category? Because there is a real category of people who shouldn't have vaginal deliveries. And what I kept
Yes.
coming up with, yes, and what I kept coming up with without even seeing my hospital notes at that time was, I don't think I'm in the category of people who can't do it. I really don't think I am. And all the while, of course, I'm praying about this, and I'm not feeling a hard door close on the area of VBAC from the Lord. So I felt like I should keep praying into it and keep pursuing it. My thought was, until the Lord very clearly and firmly shuts that door, I am going to take that as he wants me to keep walking down this path and exploring it. So when I got pregnant with our third, when I finally said, okay, I think I'm ready, babe, and we started trying again, and I got pregnant, I started looking at different things in the area that I could maybe do or try. I still didn't switch providers though, but I did reach out. I know, crazy. And the trauma bonding was
It's
so
a
intense.
process. It's a process. I
It
feel you.
really
I
was.
know.
But
I've had so many clients in your shoes. I get
yes,
it.
oh my goodness. But again, like, nobody wants to be told. Like, we can laugh and
You
be silly
truly
about
have
this.
to make the decision on your own.
You
And
have to make it on your
yeah.
own. Absolutely. Because I'm sure if somebody had told me before my mind and my spirit was ready to hear it, that, hey, sounds like you're a little trauma bonded to that provider, maybe you should ditch them, I probably would have been defensive of the
Of
provider.
course.
And I
Right.
would have been like, well, what
Hey,
do
they
you
may
know?
have contributed to your birth outcome in some way.
So yeah, whenever I got pregnant with my third, I started looking into what other opportunities for a different birth situation were available to me in my area. And there was a midwife group, a Christian-based midwife group that I reached out to. And this was, of course, during COVID time. So we're in COVID time right now. And
So
so it was
you've got some obstacles you're working
oh,
through, like
oh my Lord,
multiple.
very much so. But
You VBAC, birth during COVID.
yep.
That's an uphill battle.
And then all I had to do was walk in it.
I love this, and I consistently see God show up like this to women who have had these kinds of birth experiences, whether cesarean, traumatic, you name it, and they're like, okay, I'm never doing that again, or I'm not having any more kids, or
Yeah.
we're done, and then they get pregnant again,
Yeah.
and God's like, hey, girl,
Yeah.
how about something different this time? Like, I consistently see God nudging women, speaking to their intuition that there's a better way to birth. I love these stories because it's like he guides us into green pastures. He is for us. He is wanting the best for us and our babies. And even though it's completely not what we want at that time, and you're in the middle
Yeah.
of that process and in the middle of trauma bonding, in the middle of healing, it's like God's like, hey girl, just check out over here. The green pastures, they're real nice.
And I think because I invited the Lord from even before conception with this child,
Yeah.
and all throughout, every time I felt this little urge from the Holy Spirit to go in a different direction or try something new or learn something new about birth, it was so easy to just say, okay, that sounds crazy, but yes, because I knew what I was asking God to do. And I knew that I was handing this birth over to him and I was repeatedly surrendering it to him. And the Bible's very clear that when we ask for wisdom and do not doubt, then the Lord is so good to provide
Mm.
wisdom to us. Like that is not something he is going to withhold. That is a very good gift he wants to give his children. And so
Amen.
I just took that, like I just took every little step on this journey with this third birth or with this third baby and my first home birth as, okay, this is the next thing the Lord is leading me to. And I'm not going to doubt that this is his wisdom that's guiding me. I don't feel a pull here or there. I feel it here and I can trust that. And so I'm going to step there. And I just did that again and again and again with each new little bit of information that came. So I reached out to this midwife group and I said, you know, hey, I'm interested in trying for a VBAC. This is my history. We had this really great, beautiful spirit-led conversation. I really loved them. They thought I was an appropriate client to take on despite my history of 2 C-sections.
Wow.
But I know, but
That would make you a no for many
I know
midwives,
so
unfortunately.
many,
Yeah.
but I do think there is an element that, you know, and of course I know from this midwife group, they do say no to some people who have previous C-sections and just in general, people that they don't feel like are the right fit for a home birth. They're very considerate of those things and they also are very prayerful of those things. Like if they
Mm.
feel they lack that sense of peace that they know comes from the Holy Spirit, they're going to say no to a client. And it's not anything
Yeah.
against them or unkind toward them. It's just, I'm sorry, this is just not a good fit for us and for you. And so the fact
Yeah.
that they didn't feel that with me, again, was a confirmation of like, okay, wow, like the Lord is doing something. However, I did not feel comfortable with a home birth, and they were only home birth midwives.
Mm.
I was hoping for a birth center because, you know, here I am coming from, you know, super medical minded, super like the hospital is the only safe place to be mindset. And it felt like too big of a jump for me
It's
to
a
go from
big
that.
pendulum
Yes, it was
swing.
a huge
Yes.
pendulum swing. And I was
You
like,
need you
oh,
needed like a
Lord.
middle ground. And I hear
And
this all the time, like, oh, we'll do the birth center. That's a good middle ground.
I know. And so, and I didn't have my middle ground, Karen. And so I was a little stressed. I was like, okay, well, okay, Lord, like I thought this was the way you wanted to go, but I don't know. And so at that time, I did not join their practice. And I kept praying though. I kept praying. I was like, Lord, I really liked these women. I really wanted to work with them. But at that particular time, the Lord hadn't led me down the path of home birth. Like I hadn't even explored it once. I hadn't even thought about it once. And so it was a new thing that the Lord was like, okay, well, let's work on that. And so then new podcasts and new books and new articles started to come in front of me that highlighted birth at home in a different light. And so that was, again, not me changing my mind yet, but it was just adding. It was the Lord in his good, patient, step-by-step thing that I don't know he's doing, but he's always working behind the scenes. He was just kind of laying the foundation without me even knowing it at the time for what I ended up choosing. And the beautiful thing is, that I want everyone here to cling to, is that he answers it every
Yeah.
time. Every time. And it's mind-blowing. And so the times in my life where I'm like, I don't know, God, what to do, my birth experiences have taught me by God's grace that I can seek his will and I can trust him and that he will show me which paths to take. I can
Yeah.
just patiently keep praying that prayer because sometimes he doesn't just drop the idea from nowhere. Sometimes he wants you to continue walking the way he has you going until something new comes in, but he will answer it. He will. And it's just so beautiful that the Lord used my birth stories to really cement that truth in my mind for the rest of my life. So I'm still walking this path, right? And I'm still thinking, okay, I'm with my same provider. I guess I'm not doing the midwife thing. I guess I'm not doing the doula thing. 30 weeks rolls around, maybe 29 weeks rolls around. And at this point, I know that I'm going to have a natural labor. I'm not going to have the epidural. I'm not going to do anything. I'm even considering not even letting them give me a saline lock. I was wanting them to do
As a
nothing.
nurse,
I
that's
know, isn't that
fascinating.
crazy? It's just a wild ride. But as I'm sure maybe you've talked about with other guests you've had on about VBACs, when I looked at the statistics in my research, I was finding that if you have limited or no interventions, you have a greater chance of having a natural delivery. And because I was also, in my mind, fighting this uphill battle already of wanting to have this VBAC in the hospital, knowing that they're going to want to like do all these different things to super monitor me, I wanted to, as far as I was able, to limit what was up to my request. Like, so I knew that it would be my request for an epidural. I knew it would be my request to be sutured to the bed, in a sense, having to have my monitors on and not able to move. So I wanted all the things that I could, within my power, choose to happen in order to give me the greatest chance of a VBAC. So I knew from the get-go that I was not even going to utilize the epidural. And so 29 weeks rolls around, and I finally hear back from the doula that I had reached out to way early in my pregnancy. And she said, hey, this is so random. I know you're really far along now, but I actually have a spot for you for your birth month if you're still wanting support. And I said yes so fast. I said, oh my goodness, yes, 29 weeks, absolutely. And so the verbiage that she gave me of asking me what I hoped for in my birth was just such a beautiful, freeing, like, oh, birth can be more than just drudgery and suffering and you just grit your teeth and get through it. It can actually be something that you treasure and enjoy. You can actually, like, you when you plan a birthday party or some sort of celebration, you can look at your birth as some sort of celebration, something beautiful to be expectant about and happy about. And so I from the jump was loving just the way that this conversation was going with this doula. Of she was just opening my mind to new ways to consider having a baby, and she was opening my mind to this next part, which really was the final thing that got me from going away from my provider to hiring the midwives. And she said, okay, so what you're describing to me, everything that you're dreaming, everything that you're hoping for, it seems like what you really, really want is a home birth. And I thought, what? What? But again,
Doulas, listen up. That's a smart doula.
so
She's
good, so
listening,
good.
asking, and then reflecting back.
She did. She was so phenomenal. And, making it feel like it's my idea, like, oh, you just told me what you really wanted. It's a home birth. And so, when she said that, though, I definitely had a moment of like, oh, I don't know about that. But then very quickly afterwards, there was a sense of peace of like, yeah, that is actually where I want you to go. And I know, again, it was the Holy Spirit in hindsight. In the moment, I was like, oh, I kind of like that. But it was the Lord once again
Yeah.
giving me that direction I had been praying so fervently for, giving me that calm, giving me that peace surrounding these choices that I was making, and giving me another direction, another
Oh
leading.
my gosh, I have
I know.
goosebumps.
Isn't it beautiful? And so when she said that, I had some questions of like, okay, well, isn't it going to be messy? Who's going to clean this up? Like,
Why is that always the first question? I thought that too. Honestly, like everything you're saying, these are like places I've like mindset shifts I've had to make myself and I've seen my clients make. And it's always, what do you do with the mess? What
I know.
about all the blood?
Yes. And, she, again, in perfect doula form, is so gracious and just kind. Like, that is something that me and the midwives can take care of. You're going to be bonding with baby. And, she's just soothing my every concern, every fear. And then, of course, the other big thing that when somebody chooses they're going to have home birth is, okay, well, I'm not going to have access to an epidural, which brings me back to what I was saying earlier about doing my research and realizing that I'd already mentally prepared myself to do birth naturally.
Yeah.
That wasn't a concern. Like, probably one of the biggest concerns, aside from like the safety and concern of not being in the hospital, is, well, that means I'm not going to have pain meds if I birth at home. But that God in his graciousness had already kindly taken care of for me. That wasn't a hindrance for me in choosing home
Right.
birth,
You'd
because I had
already
already
made
been,
that decision for yourself, which is
yes,
like God, testament to God of like you had to go through this journey the way you did
yes, I did.
and
Yes, I did.
process it the way you did. And
Mhm.
so you were actually open to this path. And wow, I love it this so much.
Yes. I mean, it's so powerful to know that every step along the way, even to how it was timed, it really needed to be just the way it was. And further faith-filled reminder for me when I'm going through things now in life of like, okay, I don't really know what God's plan is in this. I don't know why he's timing it this way, why it has to be this long or this short, whatever. He's got it. Like, there was a reason for every single pause and speed up and, quickness to the pace of my birth journey. And I can see his hand in it so beautifully now, something that is hard when you're in it. But now it's given me this bolster of faith when I do go through future hard times of I can hearken back to my birth stories, this one in particular, and say, okay, but I see God's hand in that now. So that means maybe sometime this side of heaven, but maybe not, but it still is there. I am going to see God's hand in whatever it is I'm dealing with today. Birth is perfect for everything. There's just so much you
It
can
is
learn.
the ultimate transformation. It is the ultimate
Yes.
mirror to your soul. It is,
So beautiful.
oh, it will
Yeah.
turn you inside out. Absolutely. I couldn't have put it better.
Truly does. And so we did it. There was no hesitation. It was like, all right, Lord, this is your will, and we're going to walk through it.
So, question, because I know our listeners are going to want to know, how did you have this conversation with your doctor, or did you have it?
This is a great question, Karen. And I forgot to mention this in my discussion with the doula, because aside from like, oh, it's going to be messy, what am I going to do? The other question I had for her that was just really oddly burning in my heart was like, how do I break up with my doctor? My and it's so funny. I was like, she's going to be so disappointed. She's going to be so sad. Because at one of my visits with her, I remember I said, I really am going to want to VBAC this time. And she did the same, like, okay, well, we'll see. We'll just see. And I kept feeling like really uncomfortable with her not saying, yes, we're going to do it. But I wasn't getting that. And I remember at one point I said, well, I've done some research and, it looks like some people even have their VBAC babies at home. And I just kind of threw that out to her to see. And her response was like, oh, don't do that. Please don't do that. And I kind of laughed and I was like, oh, I won't. And so I had that thought in my mind as I am thinking about how am I going to tell her what I'm doing? I already promised. I basically gave a blood oath that I wasn't going to do this. And here I am.
You signed it in blood.
I did. No, but it was, I had these thoughts in my head that were just, so strong, so people pleasing. Anyway, so
yes, I can relate so much. It's like that fear that tore me up. What is my provider gonna think? And
yep,
I'm breaking up with them. So did you have the conversation with her or tell her ever?
No. I sure didn't. So what happened was I asked the doula, I said, this is a big problem for me. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And she said, here's what you're going to do. And she was so sweet. She said, you're going to call the reception office and you're going to say, hello, my name is, give them your birthday. And you're going to say, I'd like to transfer care. And I need you to fax my paperwork, all my information over to this fax number. And then you're going to say, thank you, have a good day. And you're going to hang up the phone. And I thought, it can't be that easy. Are you kidding me? And she said, yes, that's what you're going to do. And sure enough,
that is how you do it.
That's it. That's all I did. And sure enough, it all worked out. Like I signed the papers with the midwives to say like, you can request information and they have my permission to give my information. And they got it all. With my own personality, I did send my provider an email just saying like, hey, and this was after the baby was born, actually. I said, hey, just to let you know, I had my baby and we didn't die and we're okay. and that was it. But she did send me an email, saying congratulations and all that kind of stuff. But there was no bad blood. Everything was fine. And that's how I handled it. Yeah.
That's great. That's so much wisdom in that. So we have enough time, the listeners need to know about these incredible, redemptive, pain-free home births that you experienced.
Yes, I know. It's so hard.
We could talk all day, but tell us the story. Like what happened? You make the switch, you have the setup, God's leading you down this path. Did you have to overcome any other fears in preparing for a home birth VBAC?
Absolutely. I mean, going from the idea of, okay, I'm going to birth in an environment where they're going to have all the like the quick necessary emergency C-section equipment right there to, okay, we're going to have to transfer you if that happens and you're not going to have that right away. That was a big one. And of course the lie of like, well, maybe I didn't hear God right. Maybe my body can't do this. Maybe all this was just a mistake and this isn't the best plan. And I just had to rewind. Every time my mind would start to spiral there, I would need to take those thoughts captive and remind myself, okay, but you've been asking God, you have even been asking God, like in me asking these things, Lord, please protect me from even doubting you. Like I want to have clarity. I want to have guidance.
Oh, another good prayer.
Yes, of course. And so I had to keep going back to what was number one, true about God, and what he says about giving wisdom and discernment to those who ask for it and do not doubt. And that I could just leave it there. He is good and he is true and he's unchanging. And that would give me peace by itself. But then also just reminding myself that with every new step, with every new little stepping stone that God was placing on this journey, I was praying about it. I was inviting other people to pray about it. And this is the inevitable end that he took me to. And so I think the biggest final fear the Lord had to lead me to overcome was, if he brought me here, all these different stepping stones that I clearly feel like led me to a home birth, if he took me here and he still allowed me to have a C-section, am I still going to love him? Am I still going to trust him as my God? Or am I just going to have a little tantrum because he didn't give me my way? And I really had to hone in. And this is something that, of course, the Lord in his wisdom brought me. That was what I wanted to encompass this desire for this VBAC was, God, I know you can do this. Lord, I know you will do this. But even if you don't, you are my God and I love you and I can trust you and your plans for me are good. So I had to get there and I had to really let that resonate and sink in. Yeah.
I love that so much. So what happened?
I went into labor, and this was another big thing. I went into labor at 41 weeks and 3 days. So I was.
So no doubt you're having to pray that prayer a few times.
Oh my Lord. That last, after my due date up until his birthday, I was every day.
It was exactly a year long.
Really though. I was like, Lord Jesus. Oh, and just, remind me of this truth and help me. And so when I finally did go into labor, by God's grace, it was so quick. It was so fast. So I think my first contraction was at midnight. My first contraction was at midnight, 12:30. We let my doula know. She came over probably within an hour, because the way I birth, and I've done it now a few times to know this, there's not really a big buildup. It's just my contractions start really fast and they are close together really quickly. And so I let my doula know. She came on over, and when she got there, the first thing she said after she entered our home, I'm on the couch, trying to find a comfortable position, not vocalizing yet, but definitely okay, I want to breathe. I want to relax into these, trying to do all the things. And she walks in and she just puts her stuff down and she just stands in my living room with her hands out. And she goes, "Oh my goodness, Audrey, I can feel the Holy Spirit's presence in this room." And
Wow.
that was, I know, that was so validating. And it was just like God gave me a big hug in that moment. See, I'm with you. I'm here.
Yeah.
And I knew he would be, and I felt his presence too. But to have somebody coming in to my space and immediately feeling that too was such a validating moment of oh yes, another answered prayer. Part of it was just, Lord, I want your presence to be so tangible. I want everybody who walks into this space, everyone who's a part of this birth, to walk away with renewed sense of love and awe and reverence of you. And so to have her say that, it was just such a bolster. I was ready.
Love that. I've had some clients and even myself prayed that, I want this birth to be a testimony. I want this to bring people closer to God. And those prayers are so powerful and dangerous, because sometimes you don't know how to answer them, but oh my goodness. And she, I love that so much. And I love how your doula just affirmed what you already knew to be true intuitively. And she just called it out and connected to you. She didn't tell you what to do. She didn't tell you, oh, this is how you should birth. This is XYZ. But it's like doulas have this ability to tune in to the frequency of a mother's heart and reflect back to her what she truly needs before we even consciously know it, because she's seen the path, she's seen the process, she's seen the journey, she knows what comes at the end of the birth and the process it takes mentally and emotionally to get there. And it's so, I believe that this truly is a calling that doulas have, is this ability to connect, to empathetically connect to women's journeys and know, oh, this is where you're at, honey, and I'm going to just slide in right here and support you, not take over, not dictate to you how your birth should go, but recognize and reflect back to you where you are And then when we hear that, it's like, oh, yes. Like when she said, Holy Spirit's in this room, it's like, yes, that's what I've been praying for. And
Yes.
permission to fully trust the Lord, permission to fully trust your intuition, fully trust your body. Like it's just such a beautiful thing. It sounds like she perfectly melded with you and connected to your spirit.
She totally did. She absolutely did. I mean, because I'm going through my doula certification right now. I don't know if we covered that in the intro, but when I think about a doula, I'm like, I want to be Laura. That's her name, Laura. She's so phenomenal in the way that she related to me, the way she pushed me to the Lord, and the way she reminded me of truth all throughout my births, just by her tender, warm presence, her nurturing strength of like, we know what's true. We know who made your body. We know that you can do this, not by your strength, but by his. And then, of course, all the ways that she supported my body tangibly through it out. I'm like, man, you are the epitome of doula. You're holding space for me. And in that space, with two believers at least, there's a Holy Spirit in between them, holding them together
Yes.
in those
To
moments
have
too.
a faith-based, like a believing doula that also can like support you in your faith walk with God and bring it in and call God into that situation. That's such a special thing.
Oh, it's everything. Absolutely. So she showed up. She had this beautiful, validating moment for me. And she kind of walked me through some different things that I could do working through the contractions. And pretty quickly, she said, okay, why don't we go ahead and transition over to the toilet and see if we can open you up more? Because I'm sure you've talked about this with people. The toilet is dilation station.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, absolutely. And so I got over to the toilet. She like brings some candles in to make it look not like a bathroom, and she gets me a pillow and like tries to make it nice and soothing for
Oh
me.
my gosh, I'm hiring this doula.
I know, right? Come on.
Make my
And
space pretty.
oh my goodness, yes. And she's giving me some hip squeezes, helping my husband know what to do. And I remember
How
because
did
at
she
this point,
support your
yeah,
husband? Because that's such
oh
another beautiful role that they fulfill. They're not competing. Like
no,
they support.
oh she phenomenal. It's just terrific because I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I promise I'll pick back up. But after the birth was over, I remember telling my husband Hunter, I said, "Babe, you always knew the right thing to say. You were so encouraging. Like, I'm so thankful. You just were amazing." And he laughed, and I'm over here trying to have this sensitive moment with him, holding our newborn while they're cleaning up in the laundry, the living room. I'm like, "Oh, so sweet." And he laughed at me. He was like, "Oh, babe, all I did was repeat what the doula was saying." And I was like,
She made him look like a rock star.
she made him look phenomenal. But that was part of the beauty of her doula magic, is that
Yes.
she did not take his spot. She in fact empowered him and strengthened him and equipped him to give him that confidence to better be in the spot that I needed him to be. I needed him to be my main support person. And she
Yeah.
was so
In a way only he
beautifully,
can.
yeah, the way that only your husband can. And she so beautifully just kind of like by the sidelines guide him, and kind of she was like his coach. She was more of his coach in those moments than even me, of like, hey, why don't you come over here and give her a hip squeeze, or wow, Audrey, you're doing such a great job. And then he funneled that into me like, wow, Audrey, you're doing such a great job. And of course for me, I believe that our ears are just so much more tuned to what our husbands say in those moments, especially when we're like full in labor land, transition, all those things. Like, other people could be talking and making noise in the room, but if he was with me and he was whispering words of encouragement to me, I'm so tuned into his voice in those moments. And so she really just bolstered him to be the support that I really needed him to be. So there was no competing by any means. Like, he is full doula support man now. He will tell all the dads, hire you a doula. They will make you look so good, and they'll make you feel so smart and confident. Like, you're going to feel like you know what you're doing, because they're just gently leading and guiding from the sidelines. And it's so beautiful.
My
So
husband calls them birth ninjas. He's like, you
yes,
need a
that's
birth
perfect.
ninja. They do everything. They clean up, you turn around, the mess is
Mm,
gone. They comfort you. They make you know everything is good. There's nothing wrong. Everything's normal. I'm
amazing.
pretty
Yes.
sure they coached him more than me in some cases.
Yes. That's so true though. And what a gift that is, that, we've got these amazing women in these roles that can step in and do so much behind the scenes that we're not even aware of. We
Yeah.
just know that we walk away from our birth experiences feeling more loved, more seen, more heard than we ever could have imagined. At least that was my experience. And so that's
That's the exact outcome we want. That's what I tell the doulas that I train in my mastermind, is like, the goal you have for your clients isn't just that they have a pain-free birth or an unmedicated birth or vaginal birth is that they feel completely
Mhm.
seen and heard and loved and empowered to really take ownership of their birth, that that's their story.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that is perfectly said.
Yeah, seen, heard, yeah, all those things. I felt
Loved.
so loved. Yes, I felt
Ah.
so all of those things. And so that's my little pitch, another little pitch for doulas. Hire you a doula. But going back to when I was on the toilet, another great benefit of a doula is I was sitting there, I was going through transition, but of course I had no idea I was going through transition. I just knew that, oh my goodness, this just amped up. I actually don't know if I can do this. I feel like I'm going to throw up. I feel like what's going on?
And this
All
is your first birth that you're
oh yes.
experiencing.
Yes, of course. Like this is all so fresh
First
to me.
labor.
Yes, my first labor. And so, I'm starting to vocalize more. And she's like, let it out, make any sounds you need to. And I'm over here like, all right, total freedom. Something's coming out of here. I was hoarse by the end of my birth. That's how low my voice. I was just, ugh. So she was there, she was
Yeah.
supporting me. And I remember in between one of my contractions going through transition, she came behind me and she said, Audrey, what are you feeling? And of course, I'm in my mind thinking, what a wild question to ask. I'm feeling like this is really hard. Like, this is crazy. But I know now she was wanting to gauge, like, are you feeling pushy? Are you, what's going on? But I said to her, Laura, I feel really afraid right now. And she goes,
Mm.
okay, what are you afraid of? And I said, it's just so much power. It's just so much power in my body. And she was like, this is good. Your body was made for this. And so she again reaffirmed me and gave me confidence and encouragement in that moment. And then of course afterwards she tells me, when you told me that, and you told me that you were feeling afraid and that you were feeling like it was so much power. And then she said, do you feel pushy? And I said, kind of. She said she like went around the corner and like went and texted my midwives, you all better get here fast. She's moving along really quick. And so sure enough, very quickly afterwards they came. And when they got there, they were there for maybe 20 or 30 minutes. And they got me on the couch and they said, the tub is ready for you, but we don't want to get you in the tub yet unless we check you first. Is that okay? And I said, sure, let's just see where I'm at. Because they didn't want me to get in too soon if it slowed down labor, because I think they were thinking with it being my first birth, my first vaginal birth, that it would be kind of slower.
Yep.
But it wasn't. And so I got on the couch and they checked me and she said, oh my goodness, yeah, I don't feel any cervix. And I was like, again, I'm not really in my thinking mind at this point. I'm like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
It's a good thing. It's a
I
good
know.
thing, Audrey.
I know. I figured that out later. And I was like, I just said, like, what does that mean? And she said, it means you're complete. You can get in the
Wait, you
tub.
never had that experience of like, get it all the way to 10 centimeters.
Yes,
That's like
never.
the obsession in the hospital. Like, are you 10
Yes.
centimeters yet?
Oh my Lord. Yeah. And so then I got in the tub. I was in the tub for maybe 40 minutes, maybe 30-ish minutes, and just laboring. I was leaning on the side of the tub, holding my husband's hands. He was just stroking my head, encouraging me. We had worship music going. It was just total peace. And so it was such a gift all the way. And so did that for about 30 minutes. And then I remember I had like a little popping sound, which ended up being my water. So my water was breaking right at the end, not earlier, not having somebody break it artificially. It was right at the end. And very quickly after that, my baby was born. And the way I was sitting in the tub, I thought that the midwife who was behind me was going to float it back and I was going to have to lift up my leg and do some sort of gymnastics in the tub. But she just so gently, kind of just with her gloved hand, like pushed him in front of me, and he did the unfolding. Which, if you're not familiar with that term, for those listening, it's where they do their final little cardinal movement out, and they do a little turn upwards, and their arms come out. It's so cute. And I just looked down and I saw my sweet son, and I just lifted him up and held him to me, and I just kept saying thank you. Thank you, Jesus, over and over again. It was one of the most phenomenal moments of my life.
Oh my gosh, like tears. What did that moment do for you? What did that birth experience do for you as a woman?
Yeah, it proved to me that the most hard things in life, which in my experience in that moment was birth, can simultaneously be the most beautiful things.
Yeah.
And they don't have to compete. it can be the hardest thing, and it can still be one of the most amazing experiences you'll ever live through this side of heaven. And the biggest difference, the reason why I call these home births redemptive, is not because they're at home. Even though I'm a huge advocate for home birth, this is not a pitch to say everyone has to have them, or even to say for other people who have had birth center births or hospital births that their births are somehow less. That's not what I'm saying. It was redemptive because I allowed God into my story in ways that I hadn't with my first two births. Despite being a Christian, despite knowing that God was with me, he was absent in my planning, in my prayers, other than like, oh, Lord, help me have a safe delivery and a safe, healthy baby. That was it. But this had been covered and saturated in so much prayer. And the Lord so faithfully showed up in that way. And so having that birth, it really, to me, just showed we can entrust our good and gracious Heavenly Father with the deepest desires of our hearts. And certainly he doesn't give them all to us, because sometimes the things we want aren't the best for us. Even if we really feel like they are the best, it doesn't come down to feelings. It comes down to what God knows is best. And so even if he hadn't given me these birth stories, he still would have been good. He still would have loved me. But it just showed me through this birth experience that God does care about the desires of our heart. And if we ask, he does want to give those things to us. Even though it doesn't happen
Yeah.
all the time, he does want to give us those good things that align with his will. And so getting to walk out this birth and find that, yes, it aligned with his will. Yes, he said yes to it. And now I have this amazing testimony, this incredible story of his power and his goodness and his provision to me every step of the way, and in the culmination of the birth itself. It's just this powerful thing I will hold on to, like this Ebenezer stone in my life, where I can call back and remember the goodness and the faithfulness of God to me in my life.
What an incredible testimony of what happens when you invite God into your birth experience. And not just the birth, but like every step of the journey through pregnancy and preparation and providers and doulas, and every decision you're making, you are taking it to the Lord, inviting him in, asking him for guidance, asking him to, remove your doubts and your fears, and so much deeper than just, okay, make sure we're alive at the end, which is some women are at that place. And that is truly the most important thing. And no judgment or shame on that. But like, there's so much more we can ask God for. And most of us don't even realize we can ask for all of these things. And when you invite him into your birth, what happens? So tell us quickly, because we are over time, but I cannot end this podcast without hearing your final birth that you said it was actually a pain-free birth. How did you go from baby 3 to now baby 4? Now you obviously, let me rephrase that. So you had this beautiful third redemptive birth. God shows up big time. His presence is in the room. And then you have a fourth baby. And you said this one was another home birth and pain-free. Tell us about this.
With my third birth, I did a lot of mental work, because like we talked about before we started recording, so much of birth is mental, and your body will hold strong, but your mind will give out much faster. And so I had done, knowing that I was going to have this unmedicated birth, I'd done a lot of mental prep to prepare for not having an epidural, prepare for experiencing all the sensations of birth. And so I really did try to be careful to not look at it as pain, even before I took your course, even before I started dabbling in this idea of what is pain in birth versus what is just normal pain. Is that the same thing? And so after I had my third, I was in bed, just scrolling on my phone, living in the baby newborn snuggles. And I found your page like a week after, like postpartum. And I thought to myself, God damn it. What is that? A week later. Oh my God. I was like, oh, you know what? Okay, I can trust the Lord. He has carried me thus far.
God's like, okay, girl, that's for the next one. One thing at a time.
Next one. So I hit the follow button real fast on your account, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to tug that away, because I will be circling back to you.
You'll see me again.
Yes, but it just seemed like everything you were talking about. And it's funny, because you were a small account at that point. Like, you maybe had 3,000 followers, and now you're like the 300s of that. Oh yeah. Oh
You
yeah,
were,
you
like,
were
early on then.
I was an
Okay.
OG follower,
You were
yes.
OG! Oh, my girls, I
Yes,
love it.
that was good. I like this girl's humor, I like all of it,
I was
so,
real snarky in the beginning too. I mean, I
you know,
still
but
am, but I was more like that was when reels were big and I was like
oh,
making
yes,
this funny. Oh,
yes.
it's so great.
Oh, but it was my jam. It was perfect for me, and so I kinda stuck that away, and I'll say, "All right, if I have any more babies, I'm gonna look into what Karen has to say," because it seemed to just so perfectly collide with what I'd already experienced. Because even now, when I think about my first birth, it was before I had taken your course, all those things. I don't talk about it to people as if it was a painful experience. There is one instance that I will say was painful when he was coming out, his little shoulder got stuck. And so I had a hematoma from that. It was not fun. Don't recommend. But I was also more force pushing and I wasn't implementing the things that you teach about in your course. And so I I don't talk about it though, was what I'm trying to say, that it was a painful experience. And so finding you, knowing I wanted to take your course for my fourth birth, I was like, this just seems right on the money because I don't feel like what I was experiencing was painful. And it might have been because of all that mental work I did before, but I'm curious to see what this lady has to say. And so fourth baby comes around. I'm doing all the mental prep again. Not as much because I'm like, okay, I kind of got this, which is ridiculous, but I still did.
You do have a new confidence level though, to your
There was.
credit. What made you decide to invest in the course after having an already beautiful, positive, somewhat pain-free home birth?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this was in the window of time where, I caught the birth bug. I became a birth nerd and I was like, okay, hold on. That unlocked something. That third birth, that first home birth experience really unlocked something for me. But I still hadn't become a childbirth educator at that point. And so I was still learning about like, what did my body just go through? What did I just live through? That
What
was
just
incredible.
happened?
Yeah, what just happened? And in my mind, I was thinking, on a spiritual level, I don't think it could get any better than that. That was incredible. Everything that the Lord provided for me and that closeness that I experienced with him, amazing. But is there a level of the physical side of it that I could still have some room for growth in, have some room for learning? And so
I
the reason
love
I
that.
decided, yeah. And so the reason I decided to purchase your course was because I wanted to take it to that next level. I wanted to move it from, okay, that was a really great experience. I don't feel like it was super painful, minus my postpartum recovery with the hematoma. And I just want to see, is there something that I can implement with what Karen is teaching that would really solidify what I already kind of know to be true about birth? But she obviously has this extra education and training and a delivery, which I already knew I liked you, had this delivery of teaching about birth in a way that I could really move it from the abstract of like, I don't know how that actually happened. It just worked out to, okay, I do actually know how that happened. And it is something that could be repeatable or it's something that I could be practicing in
Yes.
itself. So yeah,
Yes. Yeah, it's
that's what,
like you did the third one by faith and God showed
mhm,
up. And now you're like, okay, I need to figure out how this really works so I can repeat it
exactly.
or even make
Exactly.
it better.
Yes, exactly. Because, and I think it's funny, like the pendulum swing between my birth experiences, or amongst all my birth experiences, from the C sections to then the two home births. It went from zero knowledge outside from my one semester in nursing school to, hold on, I want to absorb all that I can. Like I want to learn
You definitely
everything that
caught
I
the
can.
birth bug.
I did. I absolutely did, Karen. And so, yeah, I was like, I'm hungry. I want to learn, and I want to specifically learn what Karen has to teach. And so that is what pushed me into taking your course. And so for my fourth birth, because I know you're wanting to share this, and I know we've been talking for so long, but we can just keep going,
It's also
would
good.
be so great. But for the fourth birth, I had the same doula because I was like, "You're my girl. We're doing this." And she was so precious. She was actually pregnant with her third baby at the time, but she still came and supported me. She was phenomenal. And so the day I went into labor, I was maybe 3 days past my due date, which was a move up for me, going from a week and some days. And
That's
so I was
yeah.
pleased. Yeah,
Thank you,
I was pleased with
Jesus.
that. Thank you, Lord Jesus. But that morning, I started to have a little bit of crampiness, and I was going to have a play date that morning, but I called her and I said, "Hey, Laura, like this is what's going on. I had some mucus plug come out. I'm feeling a little bit crampy, but it's nothing to write home about. Like it's not that, whatever." And she said, "Well, you can either go to the play date if that makes you feel like you'll have more oxytocin, happy hormones going, Or you could maybe like just really stack up your day where you can maybe go on a lunch date with your husband, have somebody watch the kids for a little bit, and just rest and be home. Which one makes you feel like you'll be more rested and ready for whatever comes? And so, again, another
Oh, good
great, I
question.
know, another great utilization of a doula is to have them there to bounce off. Like, okay, I actually don't
Yeah.
know what the next step should be. They might not always know, and she wasn't telling me what to do. She really was putting it back in my hands of like, here's a couple options.
Yep.
What do you
And
feel
here's
like
how
might
it
work?
affects you physiologically
Yeah,
and what your hormones will do. I love
absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. And so from that little conversation we had, I decided, you know what, I'll forego the play date this time and I'll just reach out to my husband. We'll get a play date or not play date, a lunch date going, and we'll figure out from there what we're going to do. And so he ended up coming home for the day, which was amazing. And so he kind of took over with the kids. I cleaned a little bit, kind of nested a little bit more. We had his mom come over and watch our older kids so that we could go have lunch at Olive Garden. And that was delicious. And this whole time, I'm having what I would consider more Braxton Hicks contractions. It really was just early labor, but it didn't feel, it wasn't painful. It wasn't too hard. I didn't have to work through it or anything. I a couple times even had to make sure I was contracting. I was like, I think I'm contracting, but it's not, that doesn't feel anything. And so went to have our lunch date. That was lovely. Happy hormones are just flooding. We have a good conversation with our waitress who gives us a free cake telling her that, yeah, I think I'm going to have a baby today. And she was like, oh my gosh, do you guys need to go to the hospital? And I was like, no. We're going to have the baby at home anyway. It's all good. And she was like, oh my gosh, do you want a free cake? She was so sweet. It was wonderful.
Love it.
But we had that. I came home, took a little nap, and then the contractions again, we call the doula, we call the midwife, or we text the midwife saying like, hey, this is kind of what's going on. My midwife shows up, well, my doula shows up at around 6:45, and almost immediately when she arrives, i I feel like, okay, it's finally heavy. And of course I realize now I was in transition, but I was like, okay, wait, this is really hard. And it was almost as if her coming in the door and saying, hey, how are we doing, was the permission I needed to really feel everything and let the release
Mm.
happen, because it was almost immediate that I needed that support from her. So it was perfect timing. And of course, the Lord knows
Wow.
all these things. And so I'm on the toilet because I'm like, this is my jam. I'm just going to sit here, get comfortable, and whatever comes out, comes out. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to clean it up. It's just there. And my husband's working on the birth tub. I'm on the ball. I'm on all fours. Nothing feels good at this point. But I'm still not having an ounce of pain. Like it is the most intense feelings of my life to going through these contractions, even more so than my first birth, I would say. But it is in no way painful. It is such a difference knowing what's going on in your body and why it's happening to you versus just letting it all happen and freaking out because you feel like you've lost control and you feel like it's just all so much and so overwhelming. But understanding like, hey, your body, your uterus is working so hard right now to open you up and move that baby down and out. That's what this intensity is for. That's what all that strength is in your uterus that you're feeling, and it's a good thing. And so even though I was going through these intense sensations, all the while I knew that it was good. It was ultimately for my good, for the baby's good, and good in itself. And so it took a lot of the fear that I had experienced with my first birth, never having had any of that before, and then of course not having had your course and your training. It really helped me eliminate the feelings of fear that had kind of been there in my first birth for that transition phase. But I'm going through the final stretch of labor and I don't even know it. I don't even know how close I am to the end. And at one point in all this, my doula said, hey, why don't you just go ahead and reach and see if you can feel the baby's head? And so I try and I get excited because I'm like, okay, maybe she thinks I'm toward the end. Like this is great, because when you're in it, it's kind of hard to realize you're in transition. You're just like, this is so all consuming. I don't even know what's going on, even though
Yeah.
I had known, but I just didn't know in itself. So anyway, I tried to feel for the baby and you're good. I tried to feel for the baby and I didn't feel anything. And I tried to reach pretty far and I couldn't feel anything. And so I was so discouraged. I went through a couple more contractions. My water broke, like a huge movie-esque moment. Like somebody took a big old water balloon and just dropped it between my legs. And then
Wow.
after, I know, it was one of those things, I'm like, every time now, the 2 births that I had that were untouched, my water doesn't break until the very end, the very end. And so I had my water break, just a huge gush on the floor. And then there were 2 more contractions. And I remember I was standing for one of them, about to try to get back in the tub. And I thought after that contraction, oh my Lord, I have just pooped all over my floor. Surely there must be poop everywhere because it was so strong. And the urge to bear down was just, it had just enveloped me. And so I reached to feel down, and it was actually, his head was crowning. And so no poop, thankfully, if anybody's worried. There was none, but there was my baby's head crowning in that moment. And and even then, like, going from your trainings, I would never say that the ring of fire is painful. I just look at it as like that intense stretching and making way for baby. But it was so easy. Honestly, that sounds so crazy to say about your baby's head
Yeah.
about to be born, but it didn't hurt. And it could have also been a mixture of, I was so elated, Karen, that I was that close to the end and that he was crowning and he was about to come out. I was like, oh my goodness, yes, come on. Like, let's
Yeah, the
go.
hormones just peak. You're
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'm
I was like,
almost done.
exactly. And from then on, and it was really only 10 minutes, and my midwife came in pretty close to that happening. It was all smiles. It was all smiles and quiet, calm breathing, using the techniques that you've taught, and just allowing my body to do what God built it to do. I didn't do anything. I hobbled back into the tub after his head was just right there, but not born yet. And then there was one more contraction and his head was born. And then there was one more contraction. Didn't forceful push at all, not once. And he was born again in the water, just like his big brother was before him. And I just scooped him up and I just held him close. And it was all joy and all smiles between me and the doula and the midwives and my husband. It was just a glorious moment.
Did you push at all?
No, no, not once. And I think a mixture of, again, the things that I had learned about from your course, mixed with how my first son, my first home birth, had gone with his shoulder getting stuck and I had like forcefully pushed him out. I thought, no, my body can do this. I'm going to let it do it. My
Yes.
body knows how to get the baby out. I don't have to help it along in this case. There was nothing else going on. He looked good in the water, that I could just allow my body to work in the amazing way God designed. And so it pushed my little son out to me.
How long was your body like pushing, quote unquote, on its own or bearing down?
Oh my goodness. Maybe 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. It was just very, very fast. And so from the time of my first, like, okay, this is a real contraction, I'm going to have to work through this, to when he was born, it was maybe an hour and a half. Maybe it
Wow.
was so quick. And again, like, the amount of the hard work that I was doing that time frame was even shorter. And so it was a beautiful birth in the sense of, physically, it felt such a release, so much peace. And then of course, like, throughout it all, the Lord is present. And having the same birth team with me again, I asked, like, after he was born, would it be okay if we sang the doxology and just thanked God for this little life that's been born and for this beautiful birth? And so I had this picture of me and the rest of my birth team singing the doxology together. And it's such a sweet, treasured moment in my mind and in my heart. And now I have a picture of it forever, where we can just see ourselves worshiping the creator that gave me and my husband another little image bearer to raise.
Wow.
And it's just amazing.
I love how you make these moments sacred and that you just honor them in that way, in the way that God created them. What was the main difference, would you say, between your third and your fourth? And like what was the main difference between your third and your fourth birth? Did the fourth feel different? Did contractions feel different after having this knowledge? And was there a takeaway for you?
Yeah. I think the biggest difference between my third and my fourth birth really came down to the added education that I had done for myself, the the training on the physical side of, like, my breathing techniques, going in even a step deeper into the mental work that I was doing. That made that birth go so much smoother. But I was ready for receiving whatever that looked like when it came.
Wow. What do you wish every woman could experience in birth? If you could say one thing to a woman
Yeah,
preparing.
man, it's a accumulation of all the things I've said already pretty much. It's just that God is so kind to women, to us, that we have the opportunity to share in bringing forth his image bearers into the world. That we get this opportunity just in the same way that through our salvation as Christian women, we've been given new life in Christ. We get the amazing opportunity to bring forth new life into this world. And even though it's a small, small picture of what Christ did for us on the cross, we have this opportunity in our bodies to pour out, to labor, to bring life into this world. And we get to share in this toil and in some ways suffering that our Savior did on our behalf to bring us eternal life.
Wow, Audrey, what an incredible testimony of God's goodness and your strength and dependence on him throughout this journey. Like to go from where you started and make that transition to believing God for a beautiful redemptive home birth and then believing God for even more, like another redeeming birth, another special sacred encounter with him. It just, like, this episode was filled with goosebumps. It was, I'm sure there'll be so many different takeaways for different women. I just release her story, her testimony, that it would build up your faith for those listening, that you would be able to call on God just the way she did and ask and believe and trust and walk with God. I just released that. It was just such a closeness. I think that's the takeaway I'm getting, is like the way you walked with God throughout your journey of these births was just such a beautiful story of how we can walk with Jesus throughout our birth preparation and our motherhood journey, and how
Absolutely.
close he really is to us. And so
Yes.
I want to thank you for sharing your story. I want to honor you for sharing, for your generosity and just opening up and giving this gift to those who are listening. And I pray that it goes far and wide and really impacts the hearts it's meant to. And for those who want to follow up with Audrey and connect with her directly, you tell us where women can find you.
Yeah. So I'm not very active on there right now, but I am at faithful.labor on Instagram. And I do also have a podcast with the same name, Faithful Labor. And right now I am taking a pause, but there will be new episodes released sometime within the next month.
Well, we look forward to hearing a lot more from you, and I know women will too. So with that,
Thank you so much.
thank you for coming, and we will see you guys next week.